Alright, Disney fans, it's time we had a heart-to-heart. Elsa and Anna aren't Disney princesses, and they never will be. That's because of capitalism. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Market Power, where we look at the power of markets and economics to shape our world. And that market power is even shaping Disney princesses. You might not realize this, but Disney princess is actually an economics term. Not a term that you're going to find in an economics textbook, but it has an economic meaning. What does Disney princess mean? Well, if you were to go to princess.disney.com, you would see who the Disney princesses are, and you're going to see a lot of familiar faces like Belle, Ariel, Snow White. You might notice, though, that Elsa and Anna aren't on there. Elsa and Anna seem like natural fits because they definitely are royalty, which is what Disney princess seems to indicate. But if you actually go to this list, you'll see that royalty is not the definition of Disney princess, because you'll see characters like Merida and Moana and Pocahontas. These characters don't even have a princess title. Now, there'll be leadership where they are in their clans or in their tribes, but they aren't princesses, and some of them aren't even royalty. So Tiana has this Mardi Gras royalty, but is just a common girl, and Mulan as well. Mulan is just a regular girl who decides to join the army. So having royalty is not necessarily an indication of whether you are a Disney princess or not. So if Disney princess doesn't mean royalty in a Disney movie, what does it mean? I decided to go and look historically at what it means or see if we can get anything from it. And if you go to Google Ngrams, this is a Google product that lets you look at how words have been used in books over time. It's a really interesting tool that lets you do some interesting analyses. If you put Disney princess in here and make sure it's not sensitive to the case, you'll see that even though the first Disney princess movie came out in 1938, the term Disney princess didn't really gain popularity until the 1990s. And then it wasn't until 2000 that this just took off. And really, it's that 2000 inflection point that makes a difference. Because if we go look at the books where Disney princess is used, if you look in that 90s period, we're not really seeing Disney princess the way we would think about it today. We're seeing references to princesses in Disney movies, but we're not seeing these princesses. But once we hit 2000, we look at the books that have come out since then that use the term Disney princess. Not only do we get a lot more hits, we actually start seeing the princesses that we know as Disney princesses. So what happened in the year 2000? This is a story about Andy Mooney, who came into Disney leadership in 2000, and when he got that leadership position, he decided to go to Disney on Ice. At that Disney on Ice performance, he saw all these little girls dressed up as princesses, but these princess costumes were just generic Halloween princess costumes. Nothing that was a real Disney princess merchandise. And he realized, we don't advertise Disney princesses except for when their movie is coming out. So we have all these princesses that we have just ignored all this time. So he went back to Disney and said, I've got this idea. Let's bring these princesses together. Let's create a brand, a franchise that's going to allow us to tap the economic value of these princesses that are really, really popular. So with that meeting, Disney creates the Disney Princess franchise, and Disney Princess becomes an official title for members of this franchise. And members of this franchise can be licensed out and used in all sorts of products. So in my household, we see things like this Disney Princess book. My daughter has Disney Princess underwear, which I wonder how those sales are doing right now, and if there's any indication that those sales are decreasing. This Disney Princess brand demonstrates a principle of value creation that I think is really interesting in economics. Often we think about value creation coming through new inventions, things that make our lives better, new art that makes us appreciate the world around us, new videos that help us appreciate economics, right? This is how we create value in the world. But it doesn't have to be inventing something new or creating something new from whole cloth. Sometimes that new thing that comes, that new value, is from organizing things differently. Think about it like the gas that comes out of your stove. When you turn on that gas, you just have all this potential energy floating into the room, and it will just stay there and do nothing unless you spark it, unless you bring a match to it or a lighter, whatever the case is. You need something to get in there and unleash that economic value. And that's what was happening with these Disney princesses. You had these characters that were floating around, but their potential energy, their potential value was just dissipated. It took bringing them together and then lighting that match of the Disney Princess brand to create that value. And it created a ton of value. When that brand first came out in 2000, sales were about $300 million. In 2009, which is the most recent data that I've been able to find as I've been searching, those sales were $4 billion. That was 10 years ago that it hit $4 billion. I imagine that's increased a lot since then. That is a ton of value created just from organizing these things differently. So will Elsa and Anna ever become part of the Disney Princess brand? I don't think so. The economics don't make sense. You could say, well, they haven't been around long enough for us to determine if they're going to be in the Disney Princess brand. But that's not true because we've seen Moana in this Disney Princess brand. We know that the length of time is not what dictates whether you're in there or not. My sense of their future comes from one of the original Disney princesses who has been kicked out, and that is Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell was an original Disney princess, but since then has lost that title. Why did she get kicked out of the Disney Princess group? Well, because Disney wanted to organize a new group, a new franchise that would create value on its own, and that was the Disney Fairies franchise. You might not be familiar with this, my wife wasn't familiar with it, but Tinkerbell is the head of a whole fairy franchise where they have TV shows and they have movies, they have toys, and they had to take Tinkerbell out of there to create that value in that other franchise because no one would have cared about any of the other fairies if Tinkerbell had not led that franchise. So Tinkerbell and the fairy franchise is more valuable than putting Tinkerbell in that Disney Princess franchise. Elsa and Anna are the same way. The Frozen franchise is incredibly valuable on its own. Elsa and Anna don't have to join up with the Disney princesses to create that value. And for now, Disney doesn't see any incentive to put them in there when that franchise is already generating so much money. Moana, unfortunately, did not create that vibe, that fever that could have become its own standalone franchise. They had to get it into the Disney Princess franchise to create the value, to enhance the value of Moana, which I think is unfortunate because I actually like Moana more than I like the Frozen franchise. But that's a totally different issue. What I like about this story is how organizing things can create values. If you organize things the right way, you don't have to create something entirely new on its own. You just have to bring things together. And really, that's what markets are all about. Markets aren't this new invention. It's just organizing our economy in a way that allows us to create the most economic value on our own through the choices that we make. And I just love that about markets. If you like Disney princesses, you should check out my video on whether Disney is a monopoly that we should break up. Thanks for watching Market Power today. Subscribe, and we will see you next time.